The miss to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who last year called marijuana a gateway drug. Well, his health commissioner came out this week and said, basically endorsed legalizing, saying we looked at the pros, we looked at the cons, and the pros outweigh the cons. Okay, well, I think he looked at the political pros and political cons and decided that because his opponent, primary opponent, Cynthia Nixon, has decided to make an issue out of this in promoting legalizing pot.
All right. Dan.
Well, Paul, of course, a hit to our friend and colleague Charles Krauthammer, who was a man of surprises. When it came Charles' turn to speak on any subject, listeners felt a rare sense of anticipation at what they would hear. They couldn't guess what Charles Krauthammer would say about something. Charles combined his beliefs with facts to produce opinions which did that rare thing. He improved his admirers' understanding of a complicated world. The contribution of Charles Krauthammer is missed already.
Hear, hear, Dan. We really will miss his voice. And remember, if you have your own hit or miss, be sure to tweet it to us at JER on FNC. That's it for this week's show. Thanks to my panel. Thanks to all of you for watching. I'm Paul Gigot. Hope to see you right here next week.
Fox News Alert, we are awaiting President Trump at the Nevada GOP convention in Las Vegas. The president landing in Nevada just a while ago, and any minute now he will deliver the keynote address. Hello, everyone, and welcome to America's News Headquarters. I'm Mike Emanuel.
And I'm Laura Engel. President Trump, with his eyes on the midterms, also planning to headline a fundraiser there for Republican Senator Dean Heller in what is seen as one of the most important Senate races of the year. This comes after the president tweeted that Republican lawmakers should wait until after the November elections to address immigration reform as they work on a bill. So yesterday, he also met with families whose loved ones were killed by illegal immigrants to discuss revamping immigration laws.
Our first duty and our highest loyalty is to the citizens of the United States. We want safety in our country. We want border security. We don't want people in our country that don't go through a process. We want safety in our country. We want strong borders. We want people to come in, but we want them to come in the proper way.
And Dan Springer is live from Las Vegas with the latest. Dan, what do you got there?
Yeah, hey Laura, how you doing? President Trump arrived here at the Suncoast Hotel and Casino just minutes ago, and we understand he's in the back just holding a very quick fundraiser with some big donors. And then we expect in about 15 minutes or so to have him come out here and give the keynote address to a group of Republicans who are here for the state Republican convention in Nevada. With the ballroom filled with his supporters, obviously here, there are about 1,000 people protesting his arrival here in Las Vegas, just outside the hotel. They are blasting Trump over his immigration policy, and of course this week the big issue has been the fallout from separating illegal immigrant families at the border. The group includes a Democratic congressman from Nevada.
I think it's un-American of us to shut the door and tell them that we can't help them. This is not about being Republican or Democrat or about an upcoming election. For me, this is about humanity.
The president will no doubt address those critics in his speech today. He'll also campaign for Senator Dean Heller, who is being called the most vulnerable Republican up for re-election in the Senate. We caught up with Heller at the airport yesterday, and he said he is happy to run close to Trump in Nevada because the economy is on a roll here. Job growth leads the nation, in fact. Despite the growing Latino population in the state trending more Democratic, Heller says, don't count him out from the Hispanic vote.
They're good neighbors. They're good friends. We attend their events. Their issues are my issues. I supported comprehensive immigration reform 5-6 years ago. I want to solve the DACA problem. We're in line.
Heller's opponent is first-term Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Rosen. Today, she's at the state's Democratic convention all the way up north in Reno, and the keynote speaker is Democratic Senator and top Trump critic Elizabeth Warren. But here in Las Vegas, in this ballroom anyway, they are waiting with a lot of anticipation for President Trump. And again, he's expected to speak here in about 15 minutes. Laura?
A busy day ahead indeed. Dan Springer, good to see you today. Thanks, Dan. And this is a Fox News alert. New video just into Fox News of protesters blocking a bus at an immigration shelter along the southern border in McAllen, Texas. As we've seen over the last several days, tensions have been high there in Texas and in our nation's capital after the House GOP leadership delayed a vote on a moderate immigration bill until next week. We have live Fox team coverage. Garrett Tenney is in Washington, but we begin with Steve Harrigan, who is live in McAllen, Texas, with more on the showdown there. Hi, Steve.
Laura, about 200 protesters here out in front of what is one of the main customs stations here in McAllen, Texas, one of the first places where parents and children who are detained for illegally crossing the border into the U.S. are brought. Just a short time ago, we had some drama here. A number of the protesters trying to block a bus that was filled with parents and children being moved from one detention center to another. They surrounded the bus. A few people tried to actually throw themselves in front of the bus, but were pulled back by their colleagues. Others put their hands on the bus, and there were chants of "Free the children, free the children." Keep in mind, these children were not being separated from their parents. They were with their parents, being moved from one detention center to another. But certainly 96 degrees here in McAllen, Texas, and emotions over this issue running very high. For the past several days, we've seen a number of politicians filter through the Rio Grande Valley. Today we saw a number of Democratic legislators, more than 20 of them, trying to tour these facilities, get a sense of the conditions on the ground for the parents and the children. But really those Democrats coming out and saying we have more questions than answers. One of their main questions is there a main list, a master list of these children, about 2,000 of them still separated from their parents, where they are and how quickly will they be reunited with their parents. Laura, back to you.
All right, Steve Harrigan for us there at the border. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the immigration battle heating up on Capitol Hill as authorities continue to deal with thousands of migrants and their children. A House vote on the so-called compromise immigration bill is expected next week, even in the face of several potential hurdles. Some lawmakers saying it's simply time to get something done.
We're obligated to have a up or down vote. It's time now for us to stop politicizing it. And I mean, to have the little girl's picture on Time magazine with the president is not fair. The emotions have gotten, and rightfully so, the emotions are high. But it's time for us to, as a majority, to come together and pass just the basics.
Garrett Tenney's live in Washington with more. Garrett?
Well, Mike, there are some big potential hurdles to getting this immigration bill passed. For one, GOP leaders had to reschedule the vote for this bill because it had less support than an immigration measure that failed on Thursday. A lot of conservative lawmakers are nervous about voting for the compromise bill a few months ahead of the midterm elections because it includes a path to citizenship for Dreamers, which is not a popular proposal in many red districts across the country. One thing that could ease those concerns is if they have the full support of President Trump. On Friday, though, just a few days after urging House Republicans to pass an immigration bill, he changed his tune on Twitter, saying in part, Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after we elect more senators and congressmen and women in November. Democratic lawmakers, meanwhile, insist they won't support the GOP's latest efforts and blame this crisis squarely on the president.
He is taking infant children hostage, wrenching them from the arms of their parents, traumatizing them, perhaps for life, for the purposes of forcing us, apparently, to make an agreement that we think is bad for Dreamers, bad for our immigration system.
Despite that lack of support from Democrats and the president this morning, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise said Republicans are not giving up.
Right now, we're not there. There's a lot of work being done over the weekend by every different faction within our conference on the Republican side, from our most conservative members all the way across the spectrum, trying to find a way that we can come together.
It's important to remember that even if House Republicans are able to overcome those hurdles and pass an immigration bill, it only gets more difficult in the Senate, where they will need at least some Democratic support for it to pass. And Senate Democrats haven't given any indication that will happen. Mike?
No doubt. Garrett Tenney live in Washington. Garrett, many thanks. For more on this, let's bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of the great state of Illinois, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, good to see you on a Saturday. The vote on the leadership compromise immigration has slipped several times. Do you think there will be more support for this bill with a few tweaks next week.
Yeah, I really do. People are calling this the moderate bill. It's not I actually think this bill is more conservative, and it's certainly more in line with what the president outlined at the State of the Union. The president's called for citizenship eventually for 1.8 million Dreamers, but this bill guarantees $25 billion will be spent on the wall. There is no way to go back on that in future out years if Democrats, for instance, take over. If they go back on that funding, it ends everything else, so it's enforceable. This is a good bill. This is something that fixes all the stuff we're seeing right now that are kind of a big deal, the family separation issue. And my question for my Democratic friends, my Democratic colleagues is, what is it that you don't like? This deals with the Dreamers.
Right. Is
it the border security? Do you not want border security? If you don't, just say it. Just say you don't want border security. But this is a good bill, and unfortunately, they're more interested in stopping buses in McAllen, Texas, which, by the way, I've worked that area as an Air National Guard pilot. The border is not secure there, than they are in actually coming with us and helping to fix this.
Well, to pick up on your point, it's automatically assumed Democrats won't vote for this immigration bill. I don't know. I mean, what is it about it? And do you think that means they just want the issue for the midterm elections over an actual solution?
I think some of them just want, I mean, Nancy Pelosi, for instance, just wants the issue. Some of them are kind of beholden to their left base, which is basically a Bernie Sanders base that's saying you can't work with Donald Trump because Donald Trump is the ultimate evil in their mind. And so they're unwilling to do it. And, you know, think about it. If there's 5 House Democrats that say, I like this and I'm going to vote for it, think of what would happen to them on some of the other networks and on some of the very left-wing news organizations and among their base. And so that's the pressure they're dealing with right now. But if you look at the details of this bill, it's very conservative. It comes along exactly with what President Donald Trump outlined in the State of the Union. And unless Democrats don't like border security, and they just need to say that, if they don't like border security, it has everything they want to.
The video we're seeing on the screen is protesters blocking buses there in McAllen, Texas. There's the red hot issue of the family separation issue. Do any of your Democrat colleagues feel conflicted about voting no with that in this bill as well?
I'm sure they do. They won't say anything right now. This has just become such an extremely divisive issue. But again, talking about the McAllen area, first off, blocking a bus that is legally transporting people, okay, you know, that's kind of a violation of the law, but whatever. But secondly, again, I have worked the McAllen, Texas sector as an Air National Guard pilot doing border patrol in the air. It is not a secure area. There are Border Patrol agents that do their best, their very best. But there is constantly drugs and illegal immigrants that come over that border. So to protest there especially, instead of maybe helping to secure the border and then having compassion for all these people that are in these situations, is, I think, kind of ironic.
Congressman, should there be a political price to pay in November if Democrats don't participate constructively in addressing a critical issue like immigration reform?
Yeah, of course. I think there absolutely should be. Look, what we're putting, this bill that's going to be this week, is about an 80% issue. About 80% of Americans, when you outline what's in it, are supportive of this, Republicans and Democrats. If Democrats obstruct to this, and frankly, to some of my friends in, for instance, the Freedom Club or whatever, they need to come on board too because your constituents with these details want it. I think there is going to be, for Democrats, a price to pay if they're unwilling to work with us when the American people see what truly is in this bill.
Is there a political price to pay for your side if Republicans cannot pass an immigration reform bill? Democrats will probably be saying that, see that, Republicans can't govern.
I think it's quite possible that there's a unique issue with being in charge, which is you do have a responsibility to govern. And whether it's this child separation issue, immigration in the broad term, it's seeking or has the opportunity to derail us from all the great things that the tax cuts have been able to do, that deregulation has been able to do, and all the great things the President and Congress have been able to put into effect, including rebuild our military. It would be nice to get this done through the House. The Senate can do their thing then, but at least we're showing that we're willing to move forward and handle these issues, and we can do it as a party.
Final question. What do you say to some of your Freedom Caucus colleagues who sound like they're hoping this leadership bill does worse than the Chairman Goodlatte bill, which failed this past week?
You know, it's really kind of unbelievable. You know, I have some friends over in that Freedom Club, but for them to want this to fail, I think they have a long-term play on Speaker of the House or something like that. We all have to be united. There are some things in the last bill that I didn't like, but I voted for it with the team. There's some moments we have to come together with the team, and I would just desperately ask my friends in the Freedom Club to come over and join us in this.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger joining us from the land of Lincoln. Thanks for your time. See you back on the Hill.
Thank
Laura?
you.
All right, Mike. Well, President Trump's executive order to keep migrant families together is causing its own set of problems as federal agencies try to reunite children with their parents. Let's bring in John Bussey, associate editor for the Wall Street Journal and Fox News contributor, to talk about all this. A lot to get to.
A lot to.
Definitely. So first, I want to ask you about the logistics of the administration's demands on the immigration system. You know, this is obviously a big one. What does it do to the federal agencies, especially the Pentagon?
Yeah, well, it tosses them into a degree of confusion, and we're seeing that now. So this was a one direction for the agencies. We're going to separate the kids from the parents at the border. They had built out an infrastructure to do that. It was a colossal political mistake by the president and the administration within his own party, within opposition party. There was so much pressure on him that he had to reverse it. So now you've got the big bureaucracy of the United States moving in one direction and kind of reversing in the other, and they have to talk to each other. HHS is going to talk to the Department of Justice, who's got control, who's got authority, who's got permission to release the kids, into what capacity, should they be allowed to be released.
Right.
The Pentagon is building out beds for families now, with the expectation that they're going to be called on, as they have been in the past, as they were under the Obama administration. They haven't been contacted yet by these other agencies. They're just anticipating it. These are the military is probably our best logistics capacity in the United States.
Sure.
They're anticipating what's going to be a very, very big and confused problem that has resulted from this constant shift in policy.
And, you know, talking about that shift, this executive order was written in a day, as we know, but we also know it's going to take months to implement. So some have suggested the creation of a task force that could actually handle this huge job at hand. So how do we see the in-between time from when this executive order is written to when it can actually be implemented?
Yeah, a task force, a group of agency heads to get together to solve a problem. Wouldn't you think? I mean, that's kind of what your expectation as a taxpayer is, that the government is going to be organized and that the chief executive is going to be competent in organizing that government. But this is an example where it's unorganized. And I think that we're going to see now a lot of additional expense, a lot of additional time as people, try to decide what's going on at the border, how to keep families together now when they were told to separate them in the past. But very importantly, get all these kids who have been spread out across the country back with their parents. How that's going to happen and whether that can happen. Are we going to see down the road, months from now, perhaps even years from now, mothers or fathers outside of embassies in Latin America, like we saw in Argentina and Plaza de Mayo, when they were having their troubles and kids were taken away from their parents? Are we going to see parents protesting against, of all things, the United States, asking, where is my kid?
Right. Well, you know, you bring up the agencies, and I want to go over that because there's a lot that do have to work together. The Department of Health and Human Services responsible for the care of immigrant children, the Justice Department dealing with prosecution, the DHS handling enforcement and detention. So you mentioned that, you know, wouldn't you think that there would be somebody overseeing, but who is it that decides who gets everybody at the table, and how does that part work?
Well, it's called the President of the United States, and because all these people work for him, all the cabinet level officials work for the executive, and the executive makes that decision. So the president has got to organize that. But this is a president who tends to act a little bit more on impulse. We saw this with the travel ban on largely Muslim countries, and the kind of chaos that caused, plus the litigation that caused, which is still unresolved. I think that you'll see something of the same thing here, where there's going to be a lot of testing of what the agencies now do once they do get organized to deal with this, and it'll be legal testing. There are, in addition to the agencies, existing law that governs how the folks at the border are allowed to treat people who are coming across illegally. And those laws stipulate, well, you can't incarcerate a parent with a child for more than 20 days. So is this going to be considered incarceration? Is it going to be considered temporary living? There's going to be a lot of challenges from another institution, not HHS, not DOJ, not Border Patrol, not the Pentagon, but the judicial system.
Right. And, you know, the U.S. government, getting back to what's going to be happening possibly at the military bases, what's already been happening. We know that officials have already gone to 3 bases in the state of Texas to kind of surveil and see, you know, okay, how much room are we going to have? You mentioned that the talk of beds is already happening and how they're going to.
The military is thinking out ahead.
Yeah, which is great, right?
Yeah,
so,
which is good.
And this is not, as you mentioned, this has been done before. before. We've seen this happen with earthquakes and with hurricanes.
And with immigration. This happened in the Obama administration
Right.
when there was a flood of unaccompanied minors coming across the border, and the administration had to find a place for them, and the military stepped up.
And how long can they hold or help these people?
We don't know. We don't know the capacity within which they're going to be held. Is it going to be considered jail confinement, which would fall under the law that says 20 days and that's it?
Right.
You can't do more. Is it going to be some other mechanism by which they kind of skirt that parameter, that legal parameter?
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand that yet. And I think that's one of the many things that has to be resolved. And you would have wished that this possibility would have been anticipated and some of this thinking would have already been done, but it's being done on the fly.
And I want to ask you one last question, the question of asylum, because we've got some numbers that show many won't get in. Taking a look at the Executive Office for Immigration Review, which is part of the Justice Department, which manages the immigration court. So we have these numbers. Only 22% of the asylum cases decided this year were approved, and 41% were denied. And we keep hearing, that, well, they're coming for asylum, many of them. And when you look at those numbers, many may not get it.
They don't get it. Something on the order of 120,000 people in the first quarter of this year. The Wall Street Journal is reporting this. Is on WSJ.com now. 120,000 people come in the first quarter. Many of them illegally, some of them arriving at border stations to attempt to cross legally. A lot of those people seeking asylum, we don't know exactly how many, but a lot of them seeking asylum. Something on the order of 6,000 got asylum out of that 120,000 people seeking to get into the U.S. So it's a smaller number. And some of the emotion behind this probably needs to be curtailed.
John Bussey, thank you so much for being with us today. A complicated issue, and I'm glad to have you here to discuss it. Mike?
Sad news from South Carolina. Republican congressional candidate Katie Arrington has been seriously injured in a car crash that left one person dead. Her campaign says Arrington underwent surgery and is recovering. Authorities say a driver traveling in the wrong direction hit her vehicle yesterday. That other driver died at the scene. Arrington defeated incumbent Congressman Mark Sanford in a GOP primary earlier this month. President Trump tweeting his support, quote, "My thoughts and prayers are with Representative Katie Arrington of South Carolina, including all of those involved in last night's car accident and their families. We wish her a speedy recovery."
Indeed. President Trump set for a busy day in Las Vegas, as you've heard, rallying Republicans and talking tax cuts. Soon he will speak at the state's GOP party convention, and we will bring it to you live when it begins right here on the Fox News Channel.
Fox News alert, President Trump is in Las Vegas, where any moment now he's expected to speak at the Nevada Republican Party convention. We will bring it to you live, so stay with us right here on Fox. Laura?
And President Trump is in Las Vegas today, as we've been mentioning, rallying Republicans. Any minute now, we're going to hear from him, as Mike said, as he headlines that Nevada Republican Party convention. The president campaigning for Senator Dean Heller as he tries to maintain the GOP majority in the midterms. President Trump also asking Republican lawmakers to hold off on an immigration bill. He tweeted this: Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after we elect more senators, congressmen, and women in November. Listen.
When we have a majority in the Senate, we have a majority by one, but we need 10 votes. So we need 10, essentially, we need 10 Democrats. Not going to get them.
All right, let's talk about this with our panel. Ellen Ratner is here, the bureau chief for Talk Media News, and Deneen Borelli, the host for CRTV.com. Both are Fox News contributors. Welcome to you, ladies. All right, a lot to talk about today. Deneen, the president's call for this delay seemed to surprise a lot of people, but we are still hearing that there will be a vote next week. In fact, Republican House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and others say the House will still vote on the GOP compromise immigration bill next week. Should they? What do you think?
Well, listen, we're seeing nothing but resist from the Democrats, and perhaps they should wait, because the Democrats don't want to move forward on anything with President Trump. And if they really wanted to fix the immigration problem, they could have done so when they had the supermajority under former President Obama. And so what the Democrats really want right now, Laura, is to keep this hot button issue front and center, because they want to keep their base whipped up and emotionally involved to try to drive them to the polls. But I got to tell you, I think they are making a big mistake in really using people and playing on people's emotions with such an important issue.
Ellen, what do you think? There's obviously been a lot of back and forth over this issue. What do you see as the best path forward, and in terms of a bill that could actually do something?
The best path forward is to make sure that there are votes. Now, the fact is that Donald Trump, the president, sees that there's going to be a red tide in November. I don't see that. I'm not sure the Democrats are going to win many seats, but I'm not sure they're going to lose many seats. And so I think we're going to be in very much the same position. And I think just get the immigration thing done now.
Deneen, it feels like many lawmakers really don't want to wait. The longer this issue brews, it really could backfire if there is a delay in legislative action. So what more, it sounds like you guys agree on this, but what more do you think can be done to bring both sides together to really get it done?
Well, I'd like to see that happen as well. But what we know so far, and again, going back to Democrats not really wanting to come to the table, the president has actually invited them to the White House. They don't want to do that. Chuck Schumer has said that they're not going to agree on anything that the Republicans put forward. The president even authorized and signed the executive order to keep the families together of migrant children and people who come here illegally. And even that wasn't enough. And so I'd like to see what will be enough to make something happen. But again, they had the opportunity to do so under former President Obama, and nothing is done. This continues to be a political football tool that Democrats want to use to try to keep their base whipped up. And I got to tell you, I think it's a really big problem to see that happen with them.
Ellen, as we reflect on the optics of what we have seen at the border, the crying children, the images of the centers themselves, it's really hard for people not to get emotional over this, because it is emotional as we watch this. So do you think it helps?
Of course it's
right. Go ahead.
Of course it's emotional. But the fact is that this idea that you separate families, the fact is if you put the families together with the children, then you don't have a time limit to that, a time limit for people to be in prison. And frankly, there is nothing illegal about crossing the border and asking for asylum. That is part of America.
Deneen, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, part of the problem with that, Laura, is that we don't know who these people are that are crossing our borders. We have enough problems with drugs coming in and criminals and MS-13 gang members. And a lot of them, in many instances, unfortunately, are using children to try to force the asylum process even quicker. So we need to know who is coming in to vet these individuals. And again, the president signed the executive order to keep the families together, but I'm still hearing and reading about complaints coming from Democrats that that's not enough. We are a country of laws, not men, and we need to abide by our laws to keep our Americans safe.
All right, we've got to leave it there, guys. Ellen, Deneen, thank you so much for being here today. We'll have you back to see what happens next. Thanks.
Any moment now, President Trump is set to appear at the Nevada GOP convention in Las Vegas, where he will deliver the keynote address. We'll bring it to you live when it happens. Meanwhile, let's take you live to Conway, South Carolina, where Vice President Mike Pence is holding a Get Out the Vote rally with the state's Governor Henry McMaster. Plus, the Russia investigation taking another turn. FBI agent Peter Strzok has been subpoenaed to testify before the House Judiciary Committee in the coming weeks. What to expect next.
This IG report lays bare the bias, the animus, the prejudging of facts by senior FBI agents and senior attorneys.
This is a Fox News alert. As we've been telling you, President Trump is in Las Vegas, where he will speak at the Nevada Republican Party convention a short time from now. Right now, Michael McDonald, the chairman of the Nevada Republican Conference, is at the podium. Then the president should follow. We'll bring it to you live, so stay with us right here on Fox.
The Justice Department hitting a deadline to turn over documents to House Republicans in their Russia investigation. This comes as FBI agent Peter Strzok is set to appear before two House panels next Wednesday after he was subpoenaed by House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte. Strzok was wrapped up in controversy over his anti-Trump text messages and his role in several investigations at the Bureau in recent months. A watchdog report from the Justice Department found no evidence that decisions in those investigations were affected by political bias, but House Oversight Committee Chair Trey Gowdy believes otherwise.
There were FBI agents and attorneys who decided to prejudge the outcome of the Hillary Clinton case before the investigation ended. Prejudging the outcome of an investigation before it begins is not evidence of outcome determinative bias. For the life of me, I don't know what would be. That is textbook bias.
This is a Fox News alert. President Trump has taken the podium in Nevada, Las Vegas at the Republican Party convention there. Let's take a listen.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. I want to thank Michael. He's done a great job. He's real. I looked at some numbers before. They're looking awfully good, and I give a lot of that attribution to Michael. He has been a wonderful leader in this great state that we love. I want to congratulate Senator Dean Heller on his victory, and he's going to do a tremendous job. He's going to be a continuation of a great senator. He's been with me all the way once we got elected. I mean, I must tell you, he's a little bit shaky at the beginning, but that was when there were a lot of people running. But once we got in there, he's been rock solid, and he's been great, and he's going to do a job. And he cut your taxes, and nobody fought harder to cut taxes than Dean Heller, I will tell you that. Your great Attorney General is here, Adam Laxalt. And he's running against Shady Steve. And, well, you know, if you think of the names, right, if you think, because it's always good to sort of, if you can think of something like that. But he's going to win this race so easily, I really believe, right? Where's Adam? Where is Adam? Where's Adam? Come on up here, fellas. Come on up here. Dean, come on up, Dean. Come on.
Thank you very much.
Come on up. Thank you. And a man that really was so fantastic. And he's been like a supporter of mine for a long time. He is a very intense individual, like that's the bloodlines, you know, from this family. And boy, that father was good. He was tough. He was tough. There's only one difference. Danny's even tougher. Danny Tarkanian. Danny, come up. He's a great team player, Danny. He's a really great team player. And Dean and myself, we really appreciate what he did. And he's going to go in there and he's going to win in that 3rd congressional district. Right, Danny? Going to be there for a long time. I also want to obviously welcome all of our Republican Party delegates. You've been here and working and striving, and look what happened. Look what happened, right? You really are. You're the heart and soul of the party. This is a great state. This is a state that is going to be with us and has always been with us, and we love the people. I'm here a lot. We have a great development down the road, but now I don't think about that anymore, right? I don't think about it anymore. But I just wanted to go because I don't think anybody's come close to doing this. You know, you read the fake news, it's fake and disgraceful, and they don't talk about it. I read a story in the New York Times recently about things that we do and they say we didn't, or it's just horrible. I want to say some of the things, because I don't believe any administration, any president has come even close to doing what we've done in the first 500 days. I won't even mention North Korea in that 500 days. I won't even mention. But that was a great, I mean, we have a good chemistry together. Kim Jong-un. We have a great Chairman Kim. We have a great chemistry, and we're well on our way. You know, we signed an agreement. It said we will begin the immediate denuclearization, okay, of North Korea. It says that we already got back the hostages, and I saw it today. Well, Obama got back hostages too. Yeah, he paid $1.8 billion to get them back, okay? They didn't say that. In the New York Times, they don't say that. They said, but Obama got him back too. Yeah, but he did a little bit different. They gave him $1.8 billion. In green, can you believe this? In cash. How do you do that as president? How do you do that? But we also, you know, when I was campaigning, people would come to me and with tears in their eyes, they'd say, would it be possible to get back the remains of our father? Would it be possible to get back the remains of family members that died in the Korean War? I said, I don't exactly have a great relationship over there. This was before the election. I said, you know, that's not sounding like an easy one, but I'll tell you what, I'll try. And as we're negotiating different points the other day in Singapore, I asked Chairman Kim, would it be possible to do that? The last thing I asked, I said, do you mind, because I have many people that have written and called and spoken to me, would I be able to get the remains back of all those great heroes that we had from so many years ago? And he said, I will do that. And you probably read, they've already done 200 people, which is so great. So great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's so nice. And remember, just recently I got a call from the Prime Minister of Japan, Prime Minister Abe. And Japan is so thankful. There's no rockets flying over Japan. You know, they were flying right over Japan. And they weren't so happy. And, you know, the Japanese are great warriors. They're great warriors. And that was not a good thing. And they're so happy that they don't have that. They were having rockets, and they were testing rockets. You haven't had a rocket or tests in 7 months, 8 months, long time now. It used to be every week would have another nuclear test, a rocket test. They've blown up their nuclear site, their testing site. They've gotten rid of, in the process of getting rid of, their engine site for ballistic missiles. A lot. We're developing a very special kind of a situation where hopefully in the future, because you look at locationally, you look at it from any standpoint, North Korea has tremendous potential. Chairman Kim sees that, and a lot of tremendous things are going to happen. We were really helped by South Korea, President Moon. We were tremendously helped by Japan. We were really helped also by President Xi of China with the border. Now we have to work on our trade with China because it's been very tough on our country for very many years. Our presidents did nothing about it. And we probably lost last year $500 billion in trade to China. Think of it, $500 billion. So we've started a process, and I think that'll work out with China because we have a very good relationship with the president. With President Xi is incredible. So I think that'll work out. We're working on a NAFTA deal. NAFTA's been a disaster for us. You know, Mexico makes over $100 billion a year. It's hard to believe. It's, you know, you say these numbers, $100 billion, not trillion, not 100 billion, not million, fortunately, not trillion, very fortunately, but think of it. So $100 billion a year we lose on trade with Mexico. On top of that, they have a tax, a VAT tax at 17% that we don't have. So they make our cars. A lot of car companies went there, and they send them back over the border at virtually no tax. and we lost a tremendous amount. Now they make a big percentage of our cars. It's not fair. So we're renegotiating NAFTA, and I think when it's finished, it's going to be it's got to be a fair deal. It's got to be fair. We can't do this any longer. We can't do it anymore. And Canada charges us 275% tariff on dairy products going into Canada. It's ridiculous. And then they act like, it's like you probably read over the last couple of weeks with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's a nice guy, but we can't have it. We can't have it. 275% tariff, and we can't have it because basically that's a barrier. They say, we don't want your product. They tell the farmers up in Wisconsin and all of the different places, we don't want your product. 275 is like having a barrier, of which they do have barriers and which many other countries have barriers. So we're working on Canada, we're working on Mexico, we're working on the European Union, we're working on China, and everybody now is coming back. Have you been seeing what's going on with our steel industry? We put steel tariffs on. U.S. Steel is now building 6 plants or expanding. A steel company today announced a $500 million plant, and that's been built in many, many years. It's a long time. The steel industry is starting, and we need steel in this country. We need steel, including for national defense. We have to have steel. So a lot of things are happening. The trade stuff is coming along, just starting, but it's going to happen because, we're the piggy bank that everybody likes to rob from. They like to steal from. And unfortunately, and we have great allies, great friends, we protect them for a very small cost. If you look at NATO, we protect them for a tiny fraction of what it would cost, which is unfair also, but we won't even get into that. We're having a meeting in July. We'll talk about it. But in so many ways, our country is taken advantage of, and we're settling it up, and we're going to all be friends. We're going to all be happy, but we have to do these things. So with the European Union, we're losing last year $151 billion. $151 billion. They don't want our farm products. They tax our cars very heavily and really don't want them. They really have a barrier. And yet we take in Mercedes and we take in BMWs by the millions, and it's not fair. It's not fair. And we charge them almost nothing, and it's not fair. So when they charge us that, we have to say respectfully, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to tax your cars if you're taxing everything else, and if you're not going to take our farmers' products. We make the greatest products in so many different ways, and they don't want them. And that's okay, but then you're going to have to pay. You just can't come in and do that. We can't lose $151 billion with the European Union. We can't lose $100 billion with Mexico. So the trade deals are actually coming along. And honestly, they're talking. When they have the tariff like that put on, they want to talk. They didn't talk to Bush. They didn't talk to Obama. President Obama, they said, we're not going to talk to you about trade. Why would we talk to you? And they said, okay, great. Let's leave it for Trump. Let's leave North Korea for Trump. Let's leave trade for Trump. Let's leave immigration for Trump. We'll leave it for Trump. They left us a lot, but I'm actually having a good time. Thank you. Actually having a good time. We're doing a job. And on immigration, we have to be very strong. I mean, everybody sees, but this is the same site that Obama had, that Bush had, same site. It's the same thing. In fact, they said, look at this site. Look at President Trump. Look at this picture. Excuse me. It was 2014. It was President Obama. Okay? Our people are actually doing a very good job handling a very difficult situation. But this is a problem that should have been solved years ago. So we're working very hard. The fact is we need more Republicans because the Democrats are obstructionists. They won't vote. They're total obstructionists. They don't want to vote. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they want to use the issue, and I like the issue for election too. Our issue is strong borders, no crime. Their issue is open borders, let MS-13 all over our country. That's what's going to happen if you listen to them. So we're being very, very tough at the border. In fact, until just recently we had a 70-year low coming through. And by the way, we want people to come into our country, but we want them to come in for merit, through merit. We want a merit-based system so they can help us. You know, we have tremendous numbers of companies coming in. We have a 3.8 unemployment number, which nobody thought was even possible. And we have a 3.8. We need people to come in, but they have to be people that love this country, can love our country, and can really help us to make America great again, which is what we're doing way ahead of schedule. So since Election Day, we've created, and this is hard to believe because nobody, the news back there, fake news. If I would have said this during the campaign, we've created 3.4 million new jobs since Election Day, 3.4. If I would have said that during the campaign prior to the election without the numbers, they would have said, you have to be kidding. How about our GDP numbers? How about that? I mean, even more so. Think of this. Unemployment claims are at a 44-year low as of last week. Unemployment for African Americans is the lowest level in history. Remember, I used to say at the rallies, what do you have to lose? I meant it. What do you have to lose? Because they always went with African Americans, always voted for the most part for Democrats. And I'm reading tremendous crime, bad education, bad this, bad that, not safe, everything bad. I read like 10 different points. Income levels, home ownership levels, everything. And I said, vote for me. What do you have to lose? Remember? And they were smart. We did very well. We did very well. Those numbers went up plenty, and up enough so we won the election. And now we have the African-American, think of it, African-American unemployment, the lowest in the history of our country. Hispanic, any Hispanics in the audience perhaps? Hispanic unemployment, the lowest in the history of our country. Women unemployment, the lowest in 21 years, and shortly it will be the lowest in the history of our country, but the lowest in 21 years. That's down to 3.6%. Nobody would believe the numbers. Over 3 million people recently got off food stamps because we're doing so well. That's a big number. And after years of stagnation and even going down, people were making more money, relatively speaking, 20 years ago than they would make 2 years ago. And after years of stagnation, wages are rising again, and jobs are looking for people. Small business optimism has reached an all-time high. It's the highest it's ever been recorded. We've signed the biggest tax cut and reform in the history of our country. That's a biggie. That was where Dean, and I'll tell you, Dean really helped. He was in there fighting hard for us. You were fighting hard. That was not easy, was it, huh? That was not easy. But Dean Heller, we owe a lot. And I have to tell you, his opponent wants to raise taxes. She wants to raise taxes. Think of it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Should I mention her name or should I not? Huh? I have a great nickname for her, actually, but I'm not going to. No, we shouldn't do it. All right, I won't do it. Wacky Jackie has, you don't want her as your senator. You don't want her as your senator. Now, that name didn't come from me. That's a name that people have known because people that know her, that's what they call her, Wacky Jackie. That's what you want for your senator? She wants to raise taxes. And I think somebody said she's in Nevada right now campaigning with Pocahontas. She's campaigning with Elizabeth Warren, sometimes referred to affectionately, of course, as Pocahontas. They wanted me to apologize. No, I did, though. I did apologize to Pocahontas. I apologize. To the memory of Pocahontas, I apologized. No, Wacky Jackie is campaigning with Pocahontas. You believe this? In your state. And they don't know how to say Nevada. They don't know how to say it. She called it Nevada. Okay, so when you see that, that's not the senator you want. And you know, your senator has to deal with your president, and your president loves the state. But I'm not increasing taxes. You have a Democratic Party. It's really a Democrat. I don't like the word democratic because it's not a democratic. Do you ever notice the way everyone calls it the Democratic Party? It's not Democrat. It's called the Democrat Party. It really is. And it doesn't flow as easily. You know, it doesn't. When you speak, it sounds nicer, Democratic Party. But, you know, we're talking about people that want tax increases. They want open borders. They got to have open borders. They want people coming in. You look at MS-13. We take them out of this country by the thousands. They're flowing. We take them out by the thousands. And we have the toughest border you can have, considering the laws are the worst in the whole country. Our immigration laws are a laughingstock all over the world. We're the only people. People walk in, they put a foot in. Please, would you like to register? Other countries, they say, get the hell out of here. They do that. They have to do that. We say, you know, they want to hire now 5,000 more judges so that a person puts the toe on the land that we have to go to trial. This is crazy what we're doing. I don't want judges. I want Border Patrol. I want ICE. We don't want judges. And the problem is, and I've said it, you know, we have great people in the House, Republicans. We get the tax bill. We didn't get one vote from Democrats